Y'all remember that Crying Indian anti-littering PSA? You know, the one where the Native American paddles his way out of the past into a polluted future. And then it ends with him walking up to the side of a busy highway where somebody throws their trash out a car window and it lands at his feet, and a single tear rolls down his cheek, inspiring generations to feel guilty about littering. As you should, because if you litter, you're a bad person. And this 1971 ad is arguably the most iconic PSA in history. Which is great, right? It was just a well-intentioned ad about keeping our planet clean that had an immeasurable impact on American psyche and popular culture for generations. That would be absolutely amazing if it wasn't some of the most successful gaslighting in human history. Yeah, that's right. The ad is bad. And it's bad in a lot of ways. For starters, our star of the show, old Iron Eyes Cody, our Native American marketer of guilt, yeah, he's not Native American. He's Italian American. Nothing like a little bit of cultural appropriation at the exact same time real Native Americans were actively protesting the U.S. government's treatment of them by occupying Alcatraz. But hey, the 1970s weren't exactly the most culturally sensitive time in American history, and shouldn't we be giving a well-intentioned ad the benefit of the doubt? Well, the ad was about as well-intentioned as your cheating ex telling you that it was your fault that they slept with somebody else. See, this was a time when companies, specifically beverage companies, were transitioning from reusable glass containers to disposable containers. Prior to 1960, if you wanted a Coca-Cola or a bottle of milk or a Pepsi, you paid a deposit for the glass bottle container that it came in. Then you returned your container to get your deposit back, and the companies refilled those containers and would sell them again. Kind of like the drink container versions of the shopping carts at Aldi's. Then in 1960, Coca-Cola transitioned to canned pop that you just threw away the can when you were done, and most other companies followed suit shortly after. And in 1978, they introduced the plastic bottle. Disposable containers increased profit margins a lot because they were removing the labor of collecting, cleaning, and refilling the old containers. But the old system had recycling built into it. People wanted their deposits back, so as a result, the empty Coke bottles didn't end up in a landfill or going out the window onto the feet of an Italian dude dressed up like a Native American. Now, people started to notice that, hey, there's a lot more litter around than there ever used to be. And most of that litter says stuff like Coca-Cola on it. People were like, we had Coca-Cola before, and we didn't have a litter problem, and we have Coca-Cola now, and now we have a litter problem, and the only thing that's changed is what Coca-Cola is putting their drinks in. Kind of feeling like Coca-Cola might be part of the cause of the litter problem, and they should do something different. Coca-Cola's like, yeah, I mean, we could do maybe something so our products weren't destroying the planet, but that would mean that we would make just slightly less money, and that is not a sacrifice you can ask us to make. So then companies like Coca-Cola go to the drawing board, and they're like, we need to figure out a way to fix this problem. And I'm sure somebody in the boardroom was like, we could just go back to doing it the way we did it before when there wasn't a problem, and then there won't be a problem again. After which I'm sure he was yeeted out the window. Like, that's a ridiculous idea. We need to keep allowing our products to fill up landfills and the oceans and the ditches because that's how we make the most money. We just need people to stop being mad at us about our products doing that. And the solution they came up with was joining an organization started in 1953 called Keep America Beautiful. And this organization became a propaganda outlet dressed up in a costume to look like a public service organization. Kind of like how their main character was an Italian dude dressed up as a Native American. The irony's pretty thick in this one. And while Scooby-Doo had first aired a couple years earlier in 1969, Scooby and the gang must have been busy because there was no meddling kids to pull the mask off and keep them from getting away with it. So after a few attempts of propaganda PSAs, it didn't quite hit home the way that they needed it to. They finally found where the gaslight knob was with their Crying Indian ad in 1971. Airing it on Earth Day, they wiggled into our collective conscience with a message telling us that, all of that trash and litter you see everywhere with our logos on it, don't blame us for that. That's your fault. See, it's not our fault for making all of this trash that needs to be thrown away. It's your fault for not throwing it away properly. And you should feel really bad about all of the trash that we make ending up everywhere, because our trash that's your fault is making pretend Indians cry. And it worked. They successfully shifted what had been focused on corporate responsibilities for these types of things, taking the responsibility off the source and placing it on the individual. And corporations have been doing it effectively ever since. Climate change, it's your fault for driving an SUV and having an inefficient furnace. Pay no mind that 100 corporations account for 71% of all greenhouse gas emissions. Or that the wealthiest 1% of people emit the same amount of greenhouse gases as 2/3 of all of humanity. No, it's not them, it's your fault for letting your car warm up for for a few minutes when it's 10 below out. Or low minimum wage and stagnant wages. It's not their fault for paying you poverty wages, it's your fault for not working hard enough, or getting an education when you shouldn't have, or not getting an education when you should have. It's your fault for eating avocado toast and buying Starbucks so you can stay awake for your soul-crushing job. It's not them, it's never them, exploiting every single thing they can to make an extra dime. It's you. It's always you, just not taking enough individual responsibility. And the Crying Indian was the blueprint. It was the case study for just how effective that type of propaganda could be. And as a result, it's been one of the most damaging PSAs in human history. And it's been so effective that over 5 decades later, most people still look fondly on that garbage that they made about litter today. So if you really want to save the planet, the best thing we could all do is start a new diet and eat the rich.